Then problem of leaf rust, it came to not only in India, but it came from Ceylon, Sri Lanka. That was the first in Southeast Asian countries who had the problem of the leaf rust. Similarly, neighboring Indonesia, Java and other things, and India also. So then the enterprising British planters, they tried to address the problem. The Ceylon, they could not, um, solve this in the sense of overcome this problem. They shifted to tea. So whereas Indonesia, they are trying for some other deployed species like Robusta and also Liberica and all these type of coffees.
So that was during 1860.
1860s, that was
Great.
the period, 1860 somewhere.
Thank you.
And in India, they tried to address this problem by making a simple selection among, some sort of resistant varieties. And like that, some varieties still popular, like Kent's, which was made by the British planter, and then similarly the Cougs, which are from Coorg area, and Chicks from the Chikmagalur area. Like that, we had some folk selections during that time that was planted in them. But nevertheless, but they could not able to has a permanent respite. It's only temporary respite, and then the pathogen used to take over these varieties also like that. And then that was the time of the early 19th century also, people tried to introduce these deployed species from Indonesia, like from Java base, like Robusta and also the Liberica. They came to India, but they were more adaptable to the low altitude areas. And then some planters, enterprising planters, also tried to hybridize these Robusta and also Arabica, and also like Arabica and Robusta and also Arabica and Liberica. And they tried to get some hybrids, but they are not could not be able to generate fertile hybrids because Arabica is a tetraploid, the others are diploid species. When you cross, you will get a sterile triploids. It's not much. So they could not able to go carry on these systematic breeding programs. So, but the industry was suffering for the rust, from the rust, and then they felt the need for an organized research on coffee. So then the Mysore, because the area was under Mysore government, so Mysore Maharaja, and there was one very famous director of agriculture, Dr. Coleman. He was instrumental in establishing the central coffee. That means those days it was called as Mysore Coffee Experimental Station in 1925 in this Ballyhandle. That was the beginning of the research in coffee. And then with primary mandate of addressing the rust problem, that is the development of rust resistant varieties, and also to develop some package to control the rust. This was the main mandate initially we were working for. And when we started the breeding programs, we see, because as you know, the coffee was introduced to plant and no genetic resources, nothing. And those days, the early breeders, what they did was they surveyed the existing coffee plantations and tried to capture the variability available. And that was brought to the research station, and they started working for the breeding resistant varieties. And most of these variability is nothing but the spontaneous hybrids between Arabica and Robusta, because they were cultivating in a close vicinity side by side, or maybe the Liberica Arabica hybrids. So like that, and they evaluated, and the first Indian selection was given as a West, because there was a desperate need. People were looking for the variety, and then they gave one. It is a spontaneous hybrid between Liberica and Arabica by name S288. That was the first selection what they gave, because immediately it was 1940s itself they gave. But unfortunately, this variety was good in terms of resistance compared to Kent's and other early varieties, and also it's a moderate yielder. But unfortunately, we had some problems in terms of, because it's interspecific hybrid, in the quality traits, because instead of 2 locules, they used to have 3 locules. That means you used to get 3 beans. When they pass through pulpers, naturally you get cuts and bits. So that was the quality problem was there. So, but still it was, people were happy because in the first success was given there in the research department. So in order to improve in the quality perspective, then they crossed with Kent's. They estimated, developed this 795, which is very popular in Indian Arabicas. So it was considered as the standard variety of Arabica, 795, in terms of quality, in terms of vigor, production. Those days it was well preferred across the zones in all coffee growing tracts of India. So like that, 755 was released sometime during 1947 or so. And then up to 60s, we didn't have much problem. And the interesting thing is, because the rust and this coffee interactions are very complex, because the rust is an obligate parasite. Obligate parasite in the sense it lives only on the living organisms, so not on the dead tissue like any other fungus. So like that, this rust pathogen has the ability to exist in different forms, physiological races. If suppose you have a resistant variety, the rust try to mutate into a virulent race and then can able to overcome the resistance of the resistant variety. So the breakdown of the resistance is seen quickly on the natural conditions. So that was because normally it happens when you expand the variety in the larger areas. Normally, if you small pockets, if you grow, it doesn't help. But when you have a larger area, if you plant this variety, then the pathogen feels a pressure, selection pressure, and you try to mutate into the new virulent race. That was the story happening between the. Since then, the race started between the rust pathogen and the breeding programs. So, like that, whenever we develop a new variety, the rust is also trying to mutate into the new forms. So as of now, almost like 45 different races of rust are existing across the world, coffee growing countries. And more in India, almost 35 races are present in India. So India is not only known for it's because the rust, the conditions are the existing climatic conditions are highly congenial for rust buildup. So that's the reason why Indian conditions we see a lot of flare up of the rust in Arabica. So rust is considered to be one of the major problem in Indian coffee compared to other because the Central American countries the rust came in only 70s only, in even Brazil and other Colombia and all these things. So that's the reason why we are century ahead of the other countries in rust research. So like that, then subsequently once the 795 also started because when it planted in a large scale, by 1960s we saw almost a 20-25 years gap. We saw that new races have formed and they're trying to establish on 795 also. So, but it is a stable variety because the resistance is from the Liberica tree coffee species. It's a complex resistance. That's why pathogen cannot able to overcome totally. But that's why it's easy. People say our planters are now very experts in terms of management of the rust because that time was also coincided with the invention of the Bordeaux in France, Bordeaux mixture for spraying for grape. So that was tried on coffee and then it was successful and then for control of rust, Bordeaux sprays were recommended. So the integration of the Bordeaux sprays with the tolerant varieties somehow helped the Indian coffee industry in sustaining with Arabica cultivation. So then once the early Indian selections like 288, 795, predominantly we have some genome from the Liberica. So these coffees are considered to be, the 795 is considered to be very good for the espresso blends and also the cappuccino blends because of the Liberica genome. That's why the Italian markets know or they prefer Indian coffees because of this type of blends. So subsequently, we also try to use the Robusta Arabica hybrids like any other part of the world. HDT, you may be heard about this in Robusta Arabica hybrids, very popular from Indonesia. It was identified in Timor island of Indonesia. Those days it was under Portuguese colony. So they, because of the rust problem, the FAO also was taken into the rust problem as a serious issue, and then 1955 they established a station in Portugal called Coffee Rust Research Center. So the predominantly they selected a non-coffee growing country because to avoid the risk of pathogens. They when introduced to the country, then they don't have risk. So like that, the Portugal was helping this institute, the Coffee Rust Research Center at Portugal, was helping the all coffee growing countries in breeding the varieties for resistance. India was also very closely associated with Portugal in terms of Arabica breeding for rust resistance. So like that slowly later on we used the Arabica Robusta hybrids for developing the resistant lines. And in 80s we had demand for the dwarf varieties. People wanted the dwarf varieties for increasing the plant density per unit area. That time we tried to use the Katura and also Villasachi, such type of, and developed the dwarf varieties like Katimors and such mores. They came into the existence in Cotuais in Brazil, like that. And in India also we developed varieties from with the collaboration from Portugal. We tried to use Katimors first, but because of the high disease pressures here, Katimors soon lost their resistance. Then we are now focusing on Sachimors. Sachimors are literally better than Katimors because the donor for resistance is having durable resistance. So that's why we are now very fortunate to have this Sachimor. So these are the we have developed. The Sachimors are the largely cultivated varieties now at present, not only in India but elsewhere in the world. So there's more stable varieties and they are more resistant to or tolerant to leaf rust, easy to manage with Bordeaux sprays if at all. We don't see much flare-ups in India also. And the third aspect is the value addition.